C-PAC. Liberty. Blue collar logic.
Oh man, always having fun. The Dave Morrison there for you. Welcome everybody to another episode of Blue Collar Logic Live. I hope it finds everybody feeling well on this Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, we decided it would be an inconvenience for you all if we announced this. We're hoping for a little more privacy this time than we had last time.
Yeah, so what's going on with you, Dave?
Not too much. I was, writing down some topics today because I'm aware that I was woefully unprepared the previous two times. So now I'm just way over prepared. And if we don't get to talk about all my topics, I'll feel a little bit hurt.
Oh, I hear you. I'm not as prepared. I had to work all night last night. It was a pretty tough night, but if we have a topic, I got something to say.
So tell the people what hours you're working now.
I work midnight to 8:30, 5 or 6 days a week, basically.
He's a cat burglar in his day job.
Yeah, my day job. My day job is this right here.
Yeah.
So I stay up all night and then I work on videos and I try to get a few hours of sleep and then go back to work.
So last night, were you doing like a bank heist or, jewel?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to give all the details
Same old,
away,
same old. It's just, after a while, it's just a job like any other, isn't it?
Yeah, like this one.
Yeah.
When I worked at a music studio, I remember the first thing I thought was, I'm going to be making music every day and it's just going to be nonstop joy and creation. And then like bad vocalist after bad vocalist would come in and say, can you make me sound like Adele? Can you make me sound like, this great singer? And I'd say, no, I can't, but I'll try. And then I'd pitch correct them. And it became such a job that it almost made it not fun anymore. Doing music.
You turn out working, you end up working for like a lot of very modestly talented young women who'd rather be like in a sitcom, but their dad has enough money, so they're making a record.
That's right.
And so, yeah.
I had one lady tell me we were pitch correcting her vocals for like a 4-hour session, for like 4 songs. And she says to me, like, what would I do if this was like back in the 1960s? I was like, well, you would
work in a bank.
I was like, you wouldn't be a singer. And she's like, oh, I never thought of that. And I was like, oh, my.
You have that option now.
You probably should take that option now.
You still have that option. You could always quit when it takes us 4 hours to get one song on pitch.
Everything becomes a job. Right? This channel's a job somewhat, I enjoy it, but I slave at it too.
Yeah. It's, there have been times, though, when it's good, it's good. Lately, it's a little bit frustrating because our views are so far down, and I am interested in that phenomenon. And I was thinking on the way over here that I think that we saw an awful lot of people who were sort of angry at me because I maybe landed on a couple things differently than they did, and so. There's been some turmoil there where I've been getting beat up on quite a bit, but I also think a lot of those people have gone away, and so I'm thinking, so what about the other people? And I'm thinking that if you had been through what we've been through, where we had a disappointment with an election, and and then again with another one in Georgia, and we have Joe Biden in, who's not very interesting. I mean, he's being as kind of not interesting, although he did do an airstrike, which we'll talk about in a minute. That was kind of interesting, but where you're not wildly entertained by the government.
Yeah.
I think maybe a lot of people are doing like going, well, I haven't been in my hobby room in like 4 years. I completely forgot to visit my grandkids since 2016 because I didn't want to miss what Trump was going to do next. I have a feeling that some people are reclaiming their lives a bit. Let us know in the comments if I'm making any sense. Of course, you guys are here, so you're like us. You don't have lives.
I definitely think there's been some people are angry, which I was angry. Some people are just tired of all the energy they spent on it, and then I think some people on the other side are the same way. They're almost like just trying to catch their breath now. Like, and you know, they've ran out of their hate finally, and they've been able to like, and then so that kind of brings it back down. And but all in all, I think it's one of those things that it's gonna cycle every election cycle, every big news story, and so on.
Right. And we can only really have insight into what an audience would want as per how interested in something we are at the time.
Right.
And like, when COVID first started, I was running great guns for a while there because I was pretty outraged by a lot of the civil liberties being siphoned away from us,
Absolutely.
and the mixed messages we were getting. So I made quite a few videos on COVID. And then all of a sudden, I just sort of hit the COVID wall. I mean, like, what else can I say? It's the
Yeah.
same thing happening. We're still locked down. And then I started just getting really depressed every time I would try to write. Like I wrote a piece called Massacre on Main Street. But it's so depressing, talking about all the businesses being closed again, that I just can't bring myself to make that video. I don't feel like, I would be depressed making it, and then I'd send it out there, and then everybody else would also get depressed.
Yeah.
It's a little hard to get motivated for that loop.
Well, I think you're in a different situation too. Since I'm working on a regular basis, I am seeing people where you're more stuck at home, and it's been a long road for you stuck at home. And I know how it is when you're working on something, you're not bouncing it off anybody, and you maybe even shoot a video, and then you watch it and you go like, oh, that didn't come out right, and then you start overthinking your positions, or you start overthinking what you might say because you're just in this kind of silent room thinking too much.
Exactly. And you look at something, this past thing I did, which nobody much watched.
None of the last thing we've done anybody watch.
Yeah,
except guys who really like us.
rewrote that thing completely 3 different times. I mean, I started it, wrote the piece, and then I shit canned it, and then I wrote the piece again, and then I made that piece, and then I looked at it, and I remember I told you, yeah, I looked at it this morning, I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I'd been up all night long working on that dang thing, and I'd worked on it all the previous day, and I woke up the next morning and go, I don't like it. I don't think it's very good. So then I completely rewrote the piece again that day, and then made it the following day. I had about 5 or 6 days into that thing. I figured it up yesterday because I'm looking for ways to beat myself up, because it's boring around my house. There's only so much self-harm I've been able to do so far. So I did I did it, and I figured I probably made about something like 60 cents an hour on that one, given that maybe I'll make $25 at it or something like that.
Yeah, it's hard, but it's one of those things you just gotta stick to and keep going.
It's just doing
And these things help us.
thing that we do.
And these guys help us too. Like seeing people show up to a live stream and watching us live, interacting and writing comments. We got a couple things here. This is kind of interesting. Let's just real quick.
Let's do it. Whatever it is.
Bio Reaper, thanks to Matt Sledge Wedge and Bio Reaper for giving us a super chat. But
Sledge Wedge sounds painful.
He says, the Bio Reaper says, be honest. Who cost the 2 Senate runoff seats in Georgia? Trump and his constant bickering about the fraud, or McConnell and the GOP? Now, I'll go first on that because you wrote a whole piece about it. There's no doubt that Trump's constant bickering, the tape that was leaked about him saying, come on, man, find these votes, or whatever he's saying, like that definitely hurt him. Also, because the media's out to get Trump, obviously, that plays right up with them. But yeah, I don't doubt that the GOP in general hurts themselves a lot, the swampy part of the GOP. But yeah, I think Trump definitely had a hand in it. He didn't help it, that's for sure.
Well, and that's one of those questions that only offers that binary. And if you remember the piece that I did called Georgia on My Mind, what I was primarily talking about was Stacey Abrams. And I think Stacey Abrams is an absolute superstar. She identified the Atlanta area, so it's those counties, as she understood that there were an awful lot of people there who were naturally probably going to be Democrats because most of them were black people, and that were massive numbers of them that were not registered. And between the time that she lost the election for governor in 2018 and the time that the election came off that later became a runoff, in that span of time, she signed up a ton of voters. So I don't think any of us had a really clear idea what was going to happen in that election, other than to look at the results in the main election that later winnowed itself down to a runoff. But you can't tell there either, because there were so many candidates. There were so many candidates on the ballot in November. But yeah, I don't mean to wiggle out of the comment that you're trying to trap me into saying. I think that Trump absolutely hurt his thing by going in there and trashing basically the Republicans in that state.
Well, I think Trump was probably under the impression, as I think I was at first, that we're not going to lose both of those seats. Like that's where I think Trump was like, look, we might lose one of those seats. We're not losing both of those seats. I'm going to make my play.
Overconfident.
I think I was too. You know, you go a traditionally red state and so on, we underestimate, and we don't see a lot of those things that are going on behind the doors, like we talked about the secret cabal that was doing all the things. You don't see all that, right? You hear about it, you don't know how big it is, and yeah.
Well,
you were right. You were right about Stacey Abrams for sure.
I have some insights into this because I used to be a Democrat and I used to be a folk singer, and you have no idea unless you've spent time either as a Democrat or surrounded on all sides by Democrats, how much politics is a central part of their lives. It takes the place of sports and hobbies and all of these different things, particularly in my best friend on the planet probably is a social justice community organizer. Now, she's faith-based, so she works very easily across the aisle with a lot of evangelicals.
Yeah.
But she says she's kind of afraid to even teach her classes. She's a professor, and she says in certain topics come up where students scare her, because at that age they're all activists. All their heroes are activists.
Yeah.
So somebody like Stacey Abrams can really mobilize people by the hundreds, by the thousands, to get out there and just knock on doors and say, "We're here to sign you up to vote."
Yeah.
And then they put the message in, and then and she's a superstar. So, the topography of the place was changing politically.
Yeah.
In a way that nobody could really fully understand. Maybe we were always going to lose both those seats.
Yeah. It looks like it's a little bit, the video's a little bit glitchy out there. It's telling me that the stream's bit rate's a little lower than recommended. I'm not sure what that means, because I'm not that good at this. So I hope it's not too bad for you guys.
Did you guys have a chance to watch? I keep wanting to say C-PAC, but it's C-PAC. The C-PAC thing last night. You guys did you get a chance to watch that? Yeah. It was a little frustrating because the sound was so bad. I was hearing it like in my left speaker. It reminded me of one of my first videos that I did from the Hobo Dojo. It's only on one side.
How many people commented on that?
My picture's still not great, but my sound has been much, much better. I think. Yeah. I've learned. But,
I only watched a little bit of it because I've been so busy. Mm-hmm. But I read some transcripts. But I do have a clip of Mike Lee. You want to play that clip?
Would you guys stay with for the length of it? What is it?
It's like a 2-minute clip of Mike Lee. What I think was kind of an interesting thing he pointed out.
I thought he was great last night. So let's go ahead and run that little clip.
Okay, here we go.
Don't go anywhere, you guys.
Skepticism. Skepticism in government and faith in the people. You see, those two things work against each other. Skepticism in government and faith in the people. If the skeptics need more skepticism, be skeptical of government. If the doubters need more doubt, be skeptical of government. If the hopeful need more hope, be skeptical of government. And if those who call for unity, you really need something around which to unite, be skeptical of government. Because faith in government, and let's remember what government is. Government's not some holy thing It's not some noble aspiration. It's nothing more and nothing less than the official collective use of force. It's just coercive force. And so faith in government means tyranny. You can't have faith in government without promoting tyranny. And faith in people means freedom. That, you see, is the absolute key to our founding and to our Bill of Rights. And it also happens to be precisely what the left is trying to undo.
No doubt.
I also don't need to tell you that our fundamental freedoms are coming under attack more and more each and every day. In fact, in many ways, their sole agenda is putting more faith in government. And as a result, they take steps, inevitably, to make us less free.
Well, is it how fortunate that speech, the sound was good, because that was the crux of the issue, isn't it? I mean, it's so true. I mean, having been a Democrat,
It's what you were just saying about Stacey Abrams and them making it their life. That's what they're doing.
They believe that government is the instrument to use to build this fine world that they want. And if you just look at the things that they want, and sit down and talk with a Democrat and ask them, well, what do you want? They'll say things like, I want everybody to be taken care of, and all those things are very nice things. The problem is they want it all done through the instrument of government.
That's right.
And we all know where that leads, unless we're Democrats.
Well, it's where it's led, let's say,
it's where it's led.
In a lot of ways, right? Because if you go through the government, you're forcing your will onto somebody else. The other day, I read a. It's kind of on the same topic, not on C-PAC though. They were talking about, I think Arizona and Utah were passing laws where parents can now take their kids out of school for a mental health day. And I said, why do you need a law for that? If the parent says, hey, my kid's not feeling good today, you just keep them home from school.
Exactly.
Like, it's so
Why
crazy.
A law?
Why do they need it, right? Because they need it so they can control every aspect. Why was your kid staying home today? Mental health issue? Okay, mental health day? Great, we'll mark that one off. Oh, 3 mental health days in a year? Well, we're going to have to send maybe CPS or whoever over to come check it out. That's the kind of stuff.
We'll need to add a new agency to monitor the veracity of mental health days and how that might impact society going forward down the line. That's right. It's, if you're going to go into government and, you think you've listened to Barack Obama's speeches where he said, civil service. People, of course you can build a business, but you can go into civil service. That's noble too, and that's what he was a community organizer. Yeah. This is what they want to, and like Thomas Sowell famously said, community organizers do not organize communities. They organize communities around a grievance.
That's right.
And because they want to say, I want to go into government, but if I don't pass some laws, I will have wasted my time in government. So I've got to get in there and I've got to find something to write a bill about.
Right.
And then I've got to advocate for it. And then hopefully if we get it passed, now we've got to create another branch and some sort of thing's got to be expanded. So we get some people working on it. And these are all very nice people if you meet them off on the side. Not every single one of them, but
maybe.
but certainly now we know that not every single blue collar logic fan is a nice person either.
We're all not nice people sometimes.
Well,
we're all.
It's a mixed bag. But I don't know any Democrats who are really, when in their mind they're saying, let's destroy America and this is how we'll do it. What they're thinking is, let's build this beautiful state of equity, and this is how we'll do it.
And they can't see.
But of course, Mike Lee is completely accurate that,
That's right.
that the result of what they want to do is to have everything done by government. And like Dennis Prager likes to say, the larger the government, the smaller the citizen.
Yeah.
And that's what Mike Lee's saying in his way, is that if you take the emphasis off of people to make the decisions for their own life, or if you put those decisions for our lives on government, then you take that away from people, and a little character goes with it. Every time you
Right.
do, you take a little more character away. And as a former addict, I know that I'm not a bad person. I have some good character inside of me.
Well,
But that now I have to rely on that good character because I have fired all my enablers.
yeah.
Finally got to the place where I said, look, I'm not going to be enabled by you people anymore, even though I could keep it up. I could keep finding. I used to say that I basically go to the highest bidder. The women that were in my life, the ones that were going to, come through with the most goodies for me, were the ones that I was going to be going out with for the next year.
Sure.
And they'd be drive me. I'd have a driver and somebody to clean up my messes when I got a little too drunk, and you get diminished by the people that are there in their minds to help you.
Right. Enablers. We talked about this a couple
Right.
times on videos.
It's such a thing.
It really is. And the control part of it, right? So you always talk about the control freaks and the change junkies.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they think if they can control society because they're so smart and they're such good people, they'll be able to make it fair for everyone, and everyone will be able to get along, and we'll all have a good time, and we'll all have everything we need. And they can't look at their policies or their positions and see the negative part because they're trying. They're minimum wage, $15 an hour. That's the right thing to do because people should get paid for their work.
Right.
And
And
it's
Jerry Brown said, when they were trying to pass that in California, Jerry Brown says, well, economically, it's probably not a good idea, but morally it is. Now, if you're going to do something that has to do with economics and it's not a good idea, then it's not morally a good idea either.
Yeah, it can't be.
But that's the thing, is they put an awful lot of emphasis on good intentions.
Right.
But then intentions mean nothing to them when somebody 25 years ago said the N-word when talking about the N-word.
That's
And
right.
then they cancel him. And of course, it's not all the same people. There's a lot of different, layers of people on the left, just like on the right. It's not necessarily the same people, but they don't care about your intentions when they're canceling you.
Right.
They don't say, well, we should look at it and go, well, his intentions were good. And
Right.
he phrased that incorrectly, but let's look at his intentions.
Well,
No, intentions don't count in that, but
only,
they do with
right.
always on their side. No
That's
matter
right.
how disastrously a policy fails, they intended it
A good
to not fail. And that's
a good example is the difference between Florida and here in California on how they've been treating the COVID situation, right? So you got here in California, they just finally opened back up for outside dining and no inside dining. So yeah, if you're a small restaurant that doesn't have a patio area, you're still out of business, right? And it's been a year now almost.
just
Pretty
almost
much,
a year. It'll be
right?
a year and 2 weeks.
Florida, they're doing it differently. But then you start looking at the numbers of deaths and so on, and you start comparing them to the states that are similar, like New York, Florida, Texas, and so on.
Florida's right about in the middle.
That's right. And they're in the middle, and they're open, right?
And have been.
And they have like the second highest population of old people in
Yes.
Florida, right? But somehow New York killed all the old people. And I don't mean all the old people, but you know what I mean? So that's what they intended to do.
Milty, we should have gone to Florida when we had a chance.
They wanted to save everybody.
Here we are stuck on Long Island.
I like to say that they
Sorry.
It's okay. I like to say that Gavin Newsom really does think of, people in California and say, we should save people. But I got a feeling most people don't think that way. They have other motives, and with shutdowns comes money. Now they're going to get $40 billion with what's been passed. And so on. I feel like there's a lot of other motivations. He's eating at a fancy restaurant that costs, I don't know, $1,000 a plate or something, while he's inside eating with some people he doesn't live with, while he's telling us we can't do it. And then he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, it was a bad mistake." It's like, that wasn't a mistake. You were doing
That was you working for your political good.
That's right. You were you were judging the risk, right? Gavin Newsom was judging the risk of what he thought him and his family were going to take on with COVID situation, and they decided to go eat at this place, right? But they won't allow me to do that.
No,
because they know better than me.
but he's looking at his risk. So he's thinking, okay, it's fine for me to risk my health, and for the other people that went to the restaurant on the same night he did to risk their healths. He's thinking that he wants to be president someday. Mm-hmm. So, and he's looking out there at New York and he's thinking, I'm not going to let California become that, because I don't want to be running against that guy in a race. So let the governor of New York tank it. And I'm just going to watch him, and I'm going to be extra careful over everything that he screws up. And Gavin Newsom has just said, I'm playing it completely safe. And now they're afraid to back it off, although it's finally being able to be backed off now. You know, they couldn't very well do it. Oh, Trump lost. Back it off. They couldn't very well do that. And we were in the middle of a spike, but they keep talking about this as if it's one season, mm-hmm. like when they compare it to the flu or something like that. They say it's 10 times as greater than the flu. Well, it's 2 seasons.
Well, it definitely died out.
Yeah, it died out. And then we've had since a whole new COVID season, which coincides with flu season. So we're now coming through the 2nd season. It just came to us late, so we came into it at the tail end of, instead of it starting here in November, which flu usually does.
Right, it came later from China.
Although now they're
Italy.
saying that maybe as many as 80 million Americans have had it.
Well, they keep going back and forth with all that stuff. My mother.
But you better not question it, or they will keep your video off of YouTube.
Well, that's funny, right? You know? But I can't remember what government official was asked about the difference between Florida and California. It was someone in the federal government, and they said, "Well, what? It was someone it wasn't Fauci, but it was one of those guys." And they said, how can you explain the difference between Florida and California? And what did he say? He said something like, well, we don't know everything about what's going on. We really don't know all the variables. And it's like, yes, that's my point. But also my point is, where does it say, to get back to what Mike Lee ends up saying later a little bit in a thing, where does it say in the Constitution that you, Sir Gavin Newsom, can tell me I can't assemble, I can't work, I can't do these things? It doesn't say that anywhere.
Right.
And that's a scary part of what happened, because we know when it comes to global warming or whatever next thing they want us to be scared about, they're going to say, hey guys, you can drive your gas guzzling car on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays, but if you drive it 5 days a week, that's too much CO in the air. We got to stop you there. And that stuff's coming down the pike.
And look, watching C-PAC last night, it was obviously the theme of it. Maybe they announced this at the beginning, but I just go, oh, the theme of this is the Bill of Rights, and the whole underlying vibe in everybody's speech really was that government is we have these rights to protect ourselves from government.
That's right.
Not to protect ourselves from the everyday life. We don't have the Bill of Rights to protect us from disease,
from the flu,
to protect us from air pollution, to protect us from, somebody might have a gun shooting down the street from us. The Bill of Rights is not there to protect us from these things. It's to protect us from government intervention regarding these things.
Yeah.
And it's a very big difference, and it's a philosophical difference that seems to strike deep in the hearts of the differences between human beings. Some people they feel the collectivist thing. I've made this joke a lot of times, that the people who go on to be Democrat congresspeople and senators, they're the people who in high school, they would invite you to a party at their house, and then they'd make everybody play a game. You see, so you go in there, and I still go to Christmas parties, and I go, oh, we're gonna have to play a game? I should have expected it out of this woman. I knew I was being invited to a progressive's house.
That's funny.
Okay, we're going to have fun together, and the way we're going to have fun together is this. So everybody line up and get the rules to the fun, and then we'll go ahead and have the fun.
Right.
It's really just it's an inborn thing, as opposed to, hey, you want to get together and hang?
Yeah.
No, we'll get together and, and then I'll tell you what to do.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
I feel like
in.
I feel like girls I've dated, or my wife, or maybe just women in general, and maybe I shouldn't generalize like this, but I feel like if we're having to get together, there'd be a lot of times a girlfriend would say, "Well, what's everybody going to do?" And I'd say, "Yeah, we're gonna hang out. I don't know what exactly we're gonna do. You know,
Some things will happen, but we don't know yet.
The game might be on. Someone might say, "Hey, let's you know, you got this game in the backyard. Anybody want to play ping pong? Whatever it is, right?" And I'd be like, they're just gonna hang out. I haven't seen you know, these 3 people in like 3 months, and they're coming over. We're gonna have something to talk about. We're gonna have a good time. We don't have to have something to play, but we have I have a cupboard full of games to play. I have things, you know, here, or most people do at their house. And yeah, if something comes up and someone goes, "Hey, let's play categories," or whatever it might be,
And
let's
that's
play.
you. And that's you putting faith in people
There you
to
go.
figure it out.
That's a good point.
As opposed to putting faith in the host and hostess and telling everybody what they're going to do. I thought it was really interesting. And another thing that I do want to talk to you. Oh, I thought it was interesting when Pam Bondi was telling the story about when she had some interaction with a college in 2017, and they had invited or allowed a white supremacist to come speak at a college in Florida, and I missed a little of that, but she said that she advised against it. She said he was a horrible person because he was a white supremacist, and I'm just thinking, okay, this is what if a Democrat's watching this? They're going to see her saying, "Here's this white supremacist. He was a horrible person." Would they notice that and say, "Well, did she get together with all the people in the audience and say, I'm going to say that a white supremacist was a horrible person. Don't you guys take it personally." You know, she just went up there and said it. She's completely confident that the other speakers there and the people in the audience and the people watching in the audience are not going to say, "Well, I'm a white supremacist. I thought that's what this whole Republican Party was about.
Right.
You're letting this woman talk at C-PAC? Why, I never." Of course not. I mean, and this goes on all the time. You know, so she's saying, yes, we let this person speak because of the Bill of Rights, because of the First Amendment. But I thought, that the thing behind the thing here, the thing that's hiding, is her ability to frame it that way, and without fear of offending anybody in the audience. And that pretty much proves there's no white supremacists there.
Right. Well, I mean, we might want to talk about that Echelon Insights poll, right?
Oh, that'd be great. Can you pull that up?
Yeah, I can pull that up, because if you look here, it's going to be, let me interact with it. I think I have to
pull the Democrat one up first.
Okay.
There's 2 of them.
I think I got this one. Yeah. Let me see here. Oh, I can't interact with it. So I can't see it because it's so small on my screen. I can actually pull the
one of them.
This is the one.
I sent you 2.
Yeah. So sorry, I'm looking on my computer here for something so we can see it better, because it's small on the screen right here. Let me go.
I think those are both the same one.
Yeah, because only one of them, we're only seeing one.
Yeah.
It was.
I think I labeled them Democrat versus Republican.
Okay, so now we're looking at the same thing that you guys are on the screen. Yeah.
So this was according to that poll from Echelon Insights. And so this is what Trump's, wait, no.
Yeah, this is
okay, yes, all right. So this is the racism, the top concerns of Democrats in descending order, starting at the top. And apparently their most egregious fear is from Donald Trump supporters. If we can put any veracity to this poll. Then after that is white nationalism. And then after that is systemic racism. Those are, in a sense, aren't those all the same thing?
In their mind, it is, right? 82%, 79%, maybe 3% of these people don't think Trump supporters are racist, but the vast majority do. And I think that's what this poll really points out to me, is that they've got this fear of white nationalism, as if, like what you're saying, Pam Bondi couldn't say at C-PAC something negative against white nationalism because everybody's going to be so offended because all these Trump supporters are white nationalists, which is just absurd. But that's how they play the game. That's the media that have convinced all these people, all these Democrats, that the vast majority of Republicans or Trump supporters are racist.
And I've gone my whole life without meeting a single white nationalist.
Yeah.
I know that there are a few there because they gather once in a while, and it's usually about 200 people.
Right.
You know, that seems to be, if you really get them together, and I've researched the KKK, and the highest estimates is that if you take all KK, they're tiny little pods of 8 or 10 people, much like militias tend to be. 13 guys, they're going to take over the country. Obviously, it's an uprising. You know, if you put them all together, every practicing KKK member, you might get 3,000 in the whole country. Maybe.
That's right.
That's the highest possible estimate.
That's right.
That's hardly a giant problem.
I looked up someone who had some website. It might have been the Southern Poverty Law Center or some group like that, and they had all the different organizations and where they're at and located and how many there were, and it would say like 2 in this small town in Kentucky.
Yes.
7 in this small town in Tennessee. 4 in this place. Like there was no groups bigger than that. They were all small like that. And sure, if they all want to get together one day, that's why it's 200 people, because only 200 of them can afford to take a trip and meet up somewhere, right?
Right.
And they look like idiots. They are idiots. And
hey, don't offend our audience.
Oh, sorry.
It's not you guys.
Not you guys. We know you guys. No, it really is absurd. And it's such a minimal problem, and they've got their people convinced that it's this big thing, and it's like everywhere you go, they've tried to make it seem like even if you're a white person and you're married to a black person and you have black kids and you're loved by everybody in your all black community and you're the only white guy there, you know, you're still probably racist, and you just don't, and you just don't know it yet. You know,
probably, you know, there was probably that time that you asked your wife to make you a sandwich as if she was a slave. You know,
that's right.
It's just like I'm really interested in the podcast universe, and I speak about it quite often. And there's a whole bunch of people that we call progressives and call themselves progressives who are going hard against cancel culture. We have some of the best friends of our movement. And in fact, a guy named Alex Berenson, a former writer for the New York Times, was at C-PAC last night. And he's one of them. He's one of this stream of new people that they're getting censored, and they're realizing what the terrible problem with the press on their side. So a lot of them are ending up on a site called Substack, where you can find a lot of these writers like Barry Weiss, people who have said, this is terrible, I'm leaving the New York Times, and now they're independents. Matt Taibbi. But I listen to a guy named Sam Harris sometimes, and a lot of you probably don't like him because he's known to be an atheist, but he is an honest broker from his point of view. Now, he had a serious case of Trump derangement syndrome. So when he was doing a Trump show, I tended to avoid those particular ones. But he did a program, a podcast about omens of a race war. And there was a woman who had written supposedly one of the books of the year. It was a New York Times bestseller, and it was about white nationalism. It came out in I think it was September of 2019. So I listened to the podcast, and he was about halfway through it when he understood that all of the stats that she was giving were from the 70s and very early 80s. And he goes, wait a minute, all this stuff, these sound high. Well, she goes, well, this is from the window that I studied. He goes, well, when was the time window you studied? Oh, it was like from 73 to 82, something like that. I'm getting these figures probably wrong, but he was gobsmacked. He was going, really? I mean, we're talking about stuff that took place decades ago? She goes, well, I needed to get, the right time window. In other words, it doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
And she had to admit that, well, yeah, it's not like what it was, but I'm a historian, is the way she played it off. So she puts this book out about white nationalism, and all her stats are from a world that's long
50
gone.
50 years ago.
Yeah.
Before I was born. Yeah. Wow.
And I mean, Sam Harris isn't honest enough to call her out on it and go, well, this isn't an honest reckoning of this problem then, is it? So, but that was a very, very popular book about white nationalism that undoubtedly a lot of people bought it, never read it, stuck it on their bookshelf and said, see, a big book about it.
I care.
I care.
I care.
And this proves it's a big problem.
When someone comes over, they're going to notice, how nice I am and how smart I am and how much I care about my fellow man and so on.
Yeah.
No.
But it's so insane that they want this to be true so badly. And I heard a great a guy named Brett Weinstein has a podcast called Dark Horse Podcast, and he got together a bunch of really sharp Black intellectuals, and they talked about this problem. And all through it, I'm going, they're asking, why are they still on about this? And I'm yelling from the stands, because they're really, really wish they could go back in time and redo the civil rights movements. I call them civil rights reenactors. Like you see the guys running up and down hills in the butternut, gray and the blue, shooting each other with muskets,
right.
Pretending they're, live action
Civil War
role playing, right? Well, this is
The
live action civil rights reenacting. They just get together and they go through it again as if it's still going, because it was the last really noble thing that the left ever did.
And it's why they
that in the Vietnam War.
They have to relive it because it's not out there. They have to make it up. It's
Right.
why a Jesse Smollett, when you heard that story, you were like, are you guys kidding me? We're supposed to believe two guys followed this actor at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Sub-zero temperatures.
And, like, punched him in the face and called him a bunch of racist and homophobic slurs.
In a town where there hasn't been a Republican present for 50 years.
For a long time,
Yeah, that
for
had to
80
have
years.
happened.
And then the police showed up. There's a police video when they get to his apartment. He still has the rope on his neck, right?
And it's not even a rope. It's like a twine.
It's a twine. But we're supposed to believe that someone tried to hang him just now, and he didn't bother to take the rope
He
off.
didn't take the noose off.
Right. He even said, I didn't even realize I had the rope on me. It's like, oh my gosh. Like, obviously it was fake.
It was, yeah. I mean,
And so many people, I think Chappelle was funny when he talked about it, right? Because he was like, Black people, we were like, what? This doesn't make sense. No. Conservatives all said, this doesn't make sense, right? And we see it over and over again, whether it's someone gets pulled over and they say, he treated me this way and blah, blah, blah. And it turns out the guy releases the camera footage and they're like, ma'am, I just saw you going 30 miles an hour over the speed limit and you don't have a driver's license, so I'm giving you a ticket, but I'm not taking you in. I'm wanting to be nice. He made me feel like I was going to die.
Well, what's really great is that almost all of these really heavyweight young Black intellectuals are conservative.
Justice for Juicy.
And some aren't calling themselves conservatives, but they're all anti-woke. This is the word we need to use. If we say woke culture, we can get along really well with these podcasters, because they're lining up. They're saying what Wokeistan is what is what Brett Weinstein has dubbed it, Wokeistan, and they use the word woke. So they say, well, we're progressives, but we're so this is the way that we get to team up with people on the other side, because they'll be listened to. We won't be listened to. They will be listened to. People like Sam Harris and Brett Weinstein, who are well known on left of center, and they're generally they're progressives. But if you listen to what they're standing for, it's not that progressive. It's really kind of conservative. They just can't make themselves say the word.
Well, I think there's if you go into a lot of my Hispanic friends, they all tend to live a conservative lifestyle. Most of the Hispanics are going to church, right. They're Catholics. They're talking about hard work and doing the right thing. They're taking responsibility for their lives. They're talking about all these things. And then when they go to vote, well, the Democrats seem to care about me more or something. But I think it's not as much as that as it is, they scared us away from this other group.
That's what it is. And their Univision, which is the Spanish, it's basically CNN for Spanish-speaking people, is very, very left-wing oriented. I've heard from people. I don't speak Spanish myself.
Well, I know. I know what's his name. How the main guy, I can't think of his name. Jorge Ramos. He's one of the big
Jorge
gays.
Ramos.
Big guys, not big gays. That's wrong.
Jorge Ramos.
Jorge.
You have to roll your eyes, Mr. Seidler.
I can't do it. I don't know. He, when he does English stuff, because he does English stuff, he goes on different, CNN clips I've seen of him. Yeah, he's far left.
Right.
Right. And he's playing that same grievance that the black activists, the activists in general that are trying to find, a problem everywhere. When, it's like one of those things. If you want to be angry today, just think that way, and you'll find 5 things to tell your wife she's doing wrong.
Totally.
You'll slap your kid because he's being a jerk. You can figure out all this stuff. If you want to be happy, you can do the same thing. You can find 5 things to go like, oh, thanks for making breakfast today. Thanks for putting the kid to sleep, and so on.
I know this guy, Freebo. He's a bass player. He used to play with Bonnie Raitt, and he kind of reinvented himself as a singer-songwriter.
Name dropper.
So I kept running into him different places because he was kind of beginning to morph into a singer-songwriter thing, and I was going to these like conventions where you'd go and you'd meet venue people and you could book tours and things like that. And I ran into him once in the hallway of this thing, and I just was talking with him a little bit, and I said, what one piece of advice would you give to somebody, because he'd already had a whole career in the backup band of a singer-songwriter who went on to great fame. And he said, it's just never see somebody else's opportunity and think that you're being excluded for some reason. He goes, you won't see the hard work they put in.
Oh, that's true.
But he goes, if ever you're stalled a little bit, it's on you. He goes, if you just think that way, if you just think it's on me, I've got to work a little harder. Because the temptation was for me, I wasn't getting breaks. And maybe he noticed this in me. Maybe he heard me say some smart ass remark about it or something.
Okay.
And maybe he was targeting me, or maybe this was just a general wisdom. But I was feeling like I'm being left out. There's a clique here and I'm not in it.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't do that when we started Blue Collar Logic. I had somewhat repaired that tendency, and we worked hard instead.
Right.
And rather than blaming somebody else or trying to get connections or thinking it had to be done in a certain way, we never used a connection. We never got a single connection.
We often get people who ask us, hey, can you watch this video I made? Give me some critique on it, and give me some tips on how to make a YouTube channel or how to do it. And I said, well, the first thing is you're going to suck. You're going to suck, and no one's going to watch it. And people are going to say you're stupid, or
why should I listen to you?
Your beard is crooked. Like, you're going to get all these comments.
We've got a lot of beard comments.
You get a lot of stuff like that. And if you want to focus on that, there'd be no reason to do the next video, because only few people watched it. The people who watched it mostly,
unless it's a beard grooming video,
said they didn't like it, and so on. And then you got to think, they're like, oh, I want to get paid for YouTube. It's like, okay, sure. Well, spend a couple years trying to build a fan base, making video after video where you get paid nothing for it. Yeah, sure. And then, they go like, oh, wow, I didn't realize it was so tough. Well, it's like, of course it's tough.
Well, I'm going through that now again with, because I want to figure out a way to be a decent podcaster. And I realize it's not my strong suit. But I did reach out after having seen that video on Brett Weinstein. At one particular guy on there, John Wood Jr., young, he's 30-something years old, and this guy is so smart. I'm going to really have my hands full keeping up with him, because I invited him. I reached out. It turns out I knew some people that knew him vaguely. We got the connection will be revealed.
Finally using some connections.
But it was just I was reached out to, and it was through that Braver Angels thing.
Yeah.
And so but he is super smart, and he's a Republican. He calls himself a Republican, and he's 33 years old, and he agreed to come on the podcast next week. So I'm like making notes and things, because I look at the podcasts that I did and I go, God, I sucked on that. I mean, I wasn't paying attention to the answers. the person made a joke and I didn't laugh because I was thinking of my next question. And it's just if you want to be good at anything, playing guitar, playing drums, like all that time you spent not getting paid working at that studio,
That's right.
you know, just to get your skills up, it takes forever to get, you got to be bad at something first before you get good at it.
You're going to be bad for a long time.
You're going to be bad for a long time.
Right. And
And maybe, you know, if you're smart and you have an aptitude, it'll go quicker. If it's 2 years later and you completely still suck,
right.
maybe it's not your thing.
Right. But there's also these plateaus and valleys, and you get stuck here like, okay, I've got this figured out, you feel like, and then someone comes along, you're like, oh man, I got a long way to go there. And you think you're there, you're not there. I mean, it's a messy road, but the one thing that's constant is you can't blame anybody else for not getting there.
No.
Because it does you no good, even if it is someone else's fault. See, that's the thing. It doesn't matter. If it's someone else's fault, it still doesn't matter. You still have to make up for whatever it is that they did to you. Because they can't fix it.
Taking advantage of a legitimate ability to blame somebody else, it's like it's like you're taking a planer and you're shaving off your character. Right. Every time you take advantage of something like that, you know, so I've got a legitimate gripe here. I can,
Right.
and oh God, you know, that's why I've bloomed so late, is because I did those things. I had that thinking in my head, that loser think,
Yeah.
you know.
I
So
was lucky enough to maybe be in a more conservative area and have a father that just said, you know, son, I'm going to help you do things in life, but life's not easy. You got a lot of
plus
you got a long
you
road.
played team sports.
I think team sports is something.
Kind of hard to hide when you're working inside a strict meritocracy like that.
On top of the fact that it's a meritocracy, so you have to beat out the guy who's behind you, right? So you can play, so you can start, but you're also the guy that's playing the position beside you is going like, well, hey man, everybody else is showing up 20 minutes early to catch extra ground balls. Why aren't you?
Yeah.
Don't you want us to win as much as it? Okay. And so you start feeling like, so in your individual effort for me to become the best baseball player that I could, I had to take into consideration my environment, right? Now, it wasn't, if we go back to kind of what Mike Lee was saying, that the coach could have easily said, everybody has to be mandatory 30 minutes early and do this extra things and so on. And that would have probably killed morale and wouldn't have been as good. It was better that we were doing it, that we wanted it, right? And that's kind of that freedom that we were to
Right.
do it, made it better, made us get better.
And you know, when you think about it, if you're going to join up with a bunch of conservatives and you're going into it knowing that nobody is ever going to give you an easy out, that you've signed up, like Donald Trump wasn't saying, support me and I'll give you this program, support me and I'll do this for you. All he ever said was, support me and I'll try to make it easier for you to do the thing by getting another layer of government out of your friggin' way so you can go do it. But there wasn't any of the success there that happened that was done by Donald Trump for you.
That's right.
All it was done was he just pulled some things back and said, run with it.
Right.
You know?
Let me open up some opportunity for you guys.
Right.
And, you know, and I think you mentioned about this channel, it's like when Trump was running for president,
Is
like, hey,
that thing's still not up, is it?
what thing?
It's-
No,
okay.
our program's up. We're on.
Because we did that
they
thing
would have
last
they would have
week,
definitely
whereas-
told us. Hey, I do want to read a couple. Thank a few people here. I thank some of you guys. JC Bridge, I'm from Holland. You commented last time. Thanks again.
Do we have any questions?
Yeah, we do have a couple here.
take
Let's
'em.
see. You got a couple things. Thank you for Blue Collar Logic. That's from Christine, from Eugene. Nathan, thank you, Nathan. And then Rollo Vaughn, he wrote, bombing Syria, next upsetting the Saudi prince. Let's see. After that, I reckon the Harris administration will instigate war in Ukraine. Now,
Well, you got to admit, she's a tough president.
no, yeah.
Did she let Joe press the button? Or I know when the minute I heard that someone had posted war, you know, and I
Yeah.
looked at it and I go, oh, found out what it was about. And I thought, oh, he wants to be Donald Trump.
Right. Well, because they were criticizing. See, I definitely think Biden is more pro-war than Donald Trump was. I definitely think that's true. But I don't take this one instance as, oh, he wants to get us into another war right now. I'm not sure. But the funny part is how all the people like Kamala Harris or Jen Psaki, how they come out so strongly against when Trump bombed in Assad in Syria, and they said, we think he's a bad guy, but who gave you the right to bomb them? Then now it's like, hey, yeah, let's do it.
I know that's the way it is these days, is if the other person did it, it's wrong. And if we did it, it's great. And,
Right.
we have our problems in that area too, that we need to work on.
Right.
But,
well, that's kind of what I'm saying, that accusing him of wanting to go to war right now is kind of our side jumping too far.
I got
You know what I
get
mean? They're jumping too far, saying, "What? No, that's probably not what it is."
No, I think it was a solid move.
It could be.
Because I looked at it and I go, I think Trump would have done that.
Right.
I think Trump would have done that. In fact, Trump did, do some strikes in Syria in 2018.
That's right. He killed the general in Iran.
And then in Iran, he took out Soleimani. So
I'm not going to jump. I don't want our side to jump to that conclusion right away.
And if he's showing some independence from the hard left, I'm good with that. You're going to see it in the beginning of his presidency. Either he's going to act like he's in the bag for the hard left or not, because he had to pander them somewhat because he was supposed to do it. But he's really the candidate that got rid of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren.
That's right.
So that they did go with somebody who's considered to be sort of old school Democrat. So, I mean, I'm taking it as a little bit of, it looks to me like a proper move to have made to say, okay, look, I don't want war, but I will go violent if you push me. A president's got to do that. And since he's the only president we happen to have at this moment, I would prefer that he was showing some seeds.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know enough about why we did it, except from the just the one statement from the guy from the federal government who says, "Oh, we did it because they attacked us in Iraq or whatever," and that could very well be. But I just don't like, I don't want to jump on their side on something right away just because we can, because that's what I feel like the left is the king of, right? And this war thing is they did it. And now they jumped on Trump. Now they've done it. Now they're defending it. Right. And now we shouldn't turn around and go like, you're wanting to start World War III or whatever. Like that's a little too far.
What else we got?
We got, hey guys, I missed the late 90s. This is from Daniel. I thought we cured racism then, right? I know, right?
It came back.
He's like, I loved, and I still do, all the rap from the early 90s. Belly is one of my favorite movies. Yeah, so I can relate because, I was in high school in the early 90s, and hip hop was pop culture. It was popular. You couldn't get around it. If you went to a high school dance, that was a lot of the music that was played. And it was catchy. Everybody kind of listened to it and so on.
I loved it back then when it was still tied to the beat, when the rapping was tied to the beat. Because it's not anymore.
It's
now
pretty
it's
funky.
like there's this dirge going on there, and you know what I'm talking about? Is that Daniel?
Yeah.
I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, Daniel, but when it was bust a move or something like that, so the rapping was keeping with the rhythm, but then it morphed into something where the tracks got kind of slowed down and not as funky, and there was more like talk when over the top, and it's not tied to the rhythm anymore. And I'm going, the only thing I liked about this stuff, because I'm a kind of a,
was the rhythm.
I'm a melody guy, was this awesome rhythm.
Yeah.
Because if you listen to Chuck Berry, who I love, obviously,
me too.
There's not much melody in his stuff. He's do like a no. Well, that's just two notes.
Right.
So he's not writing melodies in the same way that Smokey Robinson wrote melodies. So, but I was able to do it because it was always driving the beat.
Yeah, he was
driving. So when I started hearing like Bust a Move or things like, and there's still some of that stuff that's real rhythmic, but there's an awful lot of it that isn't.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that comment, Daniel, and the creative 1776.
I was
donation.
Daniel.
I was really good.
Daniel, I've been meaning to do this thing about I hate rap music and do a video on it where it's really going to be a little bit more about what I hate is the way that that rap music and all the imagery was used to sort of set back the black community into more almost a version of the modern minstrel show where they're doing all these entertaining bad behaviors and the white people are going, we wouldn't let our children do that, but you are black people, so yay for you. I hate that it was the door to opening up this whole bad bit of culture. So, I was forcing myself to sit down and listen to some of the more famous rap stuff, right? And I listened to this movie by Kanye the other day, and it's like 41 minutes long or something like that. It's Kanye and his girlfriend in it is a bird. Does it sound? And
I don't know it.
I listened to it and I was going, I'm sorry, this is confounding my notions of Kanye because this is brilliant. I watched the whole thing through and I came out of it going, okay, that was really good.
Yeah.
And I listened to some stuff by Kendrick Lamar as well. And I was going, okay, that was really good. So there's obviously a lot of the genre that is really quite
One
good.
of my good friends, Alex, he even though he feels like Kanye kind of went off the deep end a little bit, he still just loves his music so
He's
much.
a genius.
Real quick, we got Joanna Hildreth sent us $5.
I know her. She's from Georgia. She's a Georgia girl, right, Joanna?
I've been following Berenson and really appreciate his COVID posts.
Yes.
I'll check out Substack, she says.
Alex Berenson. Yeah,
Berenson.
I mean, because these are our
Berenson.
friends, people who've been on the other side and are having an awakening, but all of their friends are Democrats. They can influence more people than we can. So whenever they're on our side, I'm for supporting them. What was I going to say? Other thing I was going to say. Pretty much I think I was going to quote something from Alex Berenson from his actual speech. See, I wrote this on paper. You remember this stuff.
Dave's so old.
You remember
school.
this stuff.